Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Wednesday, happy blast and a half. And guess what? I have an amazing special guest with us today. I am bringing in the big guns. I'm bringing in Joe Kwan. And the reason why I'm bringing in Joe Kwan is because he demystifies and plainly explains what this incredible force of executive presence is all about. And just so that you know, some of the workshops that Joe brings to life are a little atypical, which I love, like the ABCs of connection to feel like family and the gift of charisma to feel like a star. So I am thrilled. Joe is also the host of a daily, who does that? Podcast called Executive Presence Morsels. And I love that. And the author of Unlock Your Leadership book series. He also has instructional videos from YouTube. So hi. I'm so excited. Please, in the comments, make sure that you add your questions. We have an outline for today, but always want to make sure that we are answering questions on the fly. So Joe, thank you so much for joining. And what I would love to have you start off with is this idea of executive presence, and what does it mean and how does it work? Like if you have it in your personal life and if you don't have it, what are the upsides and downsides of having and or not having it?
Yeah, well, Lauren, thank you so much for inviting me, and super excited to meet all the people virtually on the call. I feel like we've known each other such a long time, but it's been like 2 weeks
Does that mean we have executive presence and we feel like family?
Oh my gosh, it's been amazing. So thank you so much, and I've watched some of your previous shows, and just so honored to be included in this great group that you're bringing together. And for your audience, please ask your toughest questions, the questions that you've asked your bosses, the questions you've asked your mentors that they haven't been able to adequately answer about executive presence. We want you to ask them today, so Lauren and I can hit that for you.
Yes. Hello, Michelle. Hello, Lisa. Hello, LinkedIn user. Hello, Manas. Thank you. Keep the questions coming.
So
awesome. Help us.
So to kick us off, in terms of executive presence, part of the problem is we all can feel it, right? Like no one needs to be told who has executive presence and who doesn't. We all judge that for ourselves very easily, right? The problem is when someone tells us we don't have executive presence, or we need more executive presence to get that promotion, to get that next opportunity. And then we say, so what exactly should I do, Lauren? And
right.
One of two things are going to happen. Hamana. They can't go any deeper than that. They're like, well, it's executive presence, right? And you get that weird circular thing where they keep saying the same thing over and over.
Right.
Or they tell you something that's worked for them and is very specific, but then you ask their brother, their cousin, their boss, the people who work for them, and they'll give you a totally different answer, right? So then you start to get confused. You're like, well, who do I follow? Like, what's the right opinion? And the reason why that happens is because people don't fundamentally understand how executive presence works, like how it's generated. And once you understand that, you can generate it, right? If you don't understand how to generate it, you can't generate it.
Can I just ask you, because I think that I have also been the subject of people telling me executive presence, like, Lauren, change your hair, Lauren, put on different, clothes or lipsticks, and it's all this cosmetic stuff, and I bristle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So help us to understand what we can optimize so that we are not only tapping into executive presence, but clearly so other people are feeling this invisible force.
Okay, so a couple things. First, any checklist that someone gives you of what you need to do or change about yourself to have executive presence, throw it out.
Okay.
It doesn't work like that. There is no checklist that any algorithm can provide that is going to guarantee any given person in any given situation to generate executive presence. It's a lie. It's a misunderstanding. It's a money grab, right?
Ooh,
if I could create a list of hey, Lauren, do X, Y, and Z, change your hair to this color, wear this, do that, then come on, that doesn't actually work. I'm lying to you, right?
Okay.
So then the question becomes, well, what does work? And that takes us back to what executive presence is. So the way I like to explain this is to break it down. The answer is in the term executive presence. So why is someone an executive? Like, what does an executive do? At the end of the day, at the simplest sort of common denominator, what does every executive do, Lauren?
They lead, and they are people you trust and respect, ideally.
Yeah. So the way I like to explain it, that's exactly right, is they get stuff done. They execute, right? It's in the word. Exequi is where executive came from, and it means to carry out. So an executive, regardless of your industry, healthcare, Bitcoin, accounting, legal, medical, an executive gets stuff done. That's why you get the job, because someone else has decided, you know what, I think Lauren will get the job done. James will not get the job done. That's all it is. It's not about how smart you are. It's not about how good looking or tall you are, although external factors give you an edge, of course. It's about people believing you can get things done. And that leads us to the second part. And this is what really unlocks it, Lauren. So folks, pay attention to this part. It's the presence, right? Have you ever heard anyone talk about executive doing?
No.
Yeah, it's not executive doing. It's executive presence. When I'm in the room, do people feel like they should follow me, or do they feel like they should follow Robert or Patricia or someone else? Now, I don't necessarily have to do anything for my presence to be felt. Have you ever walked in a room and you see someone who's really sad? They don't have to tell you they're sad.
Right on.
You feel it, right? Ever walk into a room and it's jubilant and people are just so happy? They might not be congratulating each other. They may not be doing anything, but you're like, wow, the presence, the energy of this room is so positive. How do I get some of that? I want that, right?
Okay, so the presence is the invisible force. Is that true?
Exactly. That unlocks everything. And the way you link it together, the connection, right? Because I'm the connection counselor. I like to connect things for people. Is it's not any presence, right? It's the presence. This is my definition of executive presence. So if there's one thing you remember, please write this down today. Executive presence is the ability to inspire confidence that you can lead well in a given situation. I'll give it one more time. Executive presence is the ability to inspire confidence. That's the presence part. That you, not someone else, me, pick me, can lead well in a given situation, in what's going on right now, what needs to happen right now.
Okay, this is so good. I had to make a little banner for it. Presence equals the ability to inspire confidence that you can lead well in a given situation. Make a note, make a post-it. Excellent. And so this is awesome, but there's more. Yes?
Yes. So the next question becomes, and thanks for that softball segue, Lauren, you're good. You're good. How do you generate that confidence, right? And so to help with that, and this isn't like a be-all, end-all list, and as you know from my earlier comments, I'm sort of anti-list, but this is just to get you the idea, to get you thinking about some common things that will inspire that confidence. So I've come up with 6 states of being. I call it the 6 degrees of executive presence, kind of like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon game that that people used to play. And when you have these states of being in the right time, in the right combination, and you're not going to have all 6 at once, right? It's just about identifying like what's useful now. It will help inspire that confidence. So the 6, and I'll go through them real quickly, and then we can dive into any that you want or that people want. Is 1 is being proactive, right? Do you wait around for something bad to happen, or are you taking steps to fix things and to succeed? The 2nd is being resolute, right? Are you a flip-flopper, or do you only change after consideration and there's a real need to change and you're not just following popularity, right? Because no one likes to have their leaders change lanes like too often. Equanimity. It's just a fancy way for saying, are you cool under fire? Right?
I
And
love that word.
yeah,
That word is so underutilized. Now, of course, it will be the next awesome, but I do love this term because the coolness factor, cool, not like hip cool, cool under pressure is somebody who is able to diffuse a lot of the noise, and also somebody who is able to be less reactive and much more responsive.
yeah, absolutely. And that's a beautiful segue into our next state of being, which is stillness, right? It may be a little confusing because I said proactive before. Stillness doesn't mean taking too long to do something. Stillness doesn't mean being inactive. It means being still and not wasting energy until it's time to pounce into action. And the metaphor I love to use is Olympic swimmers on those starting blocks, right? They kind of shake off and they lean over and they grab, the starting block, and then they're perfectly still, like a Greek statue.
That's it. That's an awesome visual to hold on to. So they get it out. They're on the starting block. And when that signal goes off, they're on fire.
And think about the power that is unleashed. The power that is unleashed because they were still, right?
Totally.
They marshaled all their power for the exact moment, right? Someone's asking what was number 3. Number 3 was equanimity.
Yes.
So 4 is stillness, right? Just to act when it's time to act. And a lot of leaders like this, right? They don't talk a lot, but when they say something, everyone listens, right?
That's the best.
So after stillness, we have engaged, right? Where who wants to follow a leader who you bring a problem to them or you tell them something and they forget it as soon as you walk out of the room, or they ignore you, right? I would rather have them engage with me and contradict me and give me the reasons why I'm wrong than to say, yes, that's really nice, Lauren. We'll take care of it. And then nothing's going to happen. You're not going to fall for that Charlie Brown kicking the football thing more than once or twice. And after a while, you're going to stop bringing problems to their attention, right? Problems that could save them, could save you, could save the company, could make millions of dollars. You're not going to bring that because they're not engaged. Why should I give my pearls to them when they're just going to ignore them, right?
I love that. Engaged. And number 6?
Number 6, this is the most obvious one, the one that people always talk about, confidence. If you don't have confidence, why would anyone have confidence in you? It's very unlikely that a person without confidence has other people believing in them. So the point here is not for you to memorize this list and to say, I'm going to go into this meeting and be proactive, right? It's about understanding that your state of being, the way you show up, your presence for that scenario is going to create that invisible field, that feeling, that presence of like, you know what? Not that you know what you're doing, although it comes through our brain that way, but like there's something about the way they are that gives me confidence that I should follow them and not the other person, regardless of title.
Okay, so these 6 are amazing. And one of my questions is, here I am, how do I know, number 1, if I have executive presence or I don't? And then how do I diagnose myself to determine which one of these areas I may or may not have or need help with? So, for example, if I don't have somebody who is overseeing me or doesn't have the ability to identify that I need this, how do I assess what to do?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's definitely challenging. And what I would say in terms of how to figure this out, right, is it's not any particular one thing that you need. Well, actually, let me go back. How do you know if you have it or not, right? Let's
Yes.
go back to that
Yeah.
one.
How do you know?
So you know if people are constantly asking you to lead stuff, right? If you have outsized executive presence, you will get more opportunities than you can take. Why?
Okay.
Because everyone recognizes, oh my gosh, this person's a leader. I want them on my team. I want them on my initiative, whether it's a formal work thing or not. At church, at synagogue, in your community, are people always coming up to you and saying, hey, I'd love you on this committee. Can you serve on this nonprofit? You know why? Because you show up as a leader, right?
Awesome. Okay. So would you suggest that people make some either mental notes or real notes of either times that they have been selected for those types of roles and or maybe passed over?
Yeah, absolutely. I would do that. And I would also look at other people who you know who are always getting selected for that. Right? Not to, here's the trick though. Here's the tricky part. Because this can steer you the wrong way. Not to copy them.
Right.
Not to clone yourself, but to observe the dynamic. And you can use the 6 degrees as like an easy cheat sheet, right? Like let's say you're in a committee meeting and one person everyone always follows their lead, right? And you sit there quietly and you're watching and you're like, what is it? Not about what they're doing or how they look. What is it about how they're showing up that is creating this dynamic that people are like, wow, we should really listen to them. And I think you'll be surprised. It has less to do with what they're doing and more to do with their presence. Is it because they're more engaged, right? They listen better and they ask better questions. Is it because they don't talk too much? Because they're still and they wait for the perfect moment? Is it because they have great confidence and they also always say everything with such great confidence? And here's another interesting thing. Executive presence, and don't take this the wrong way, folks, doesn't equal competence or the best person for the job. All it does is make people believe that you are the best person. Whether you are or not, I can't help you with that.
Okay. So that's a whopping message. It isn't a guarantee that that person is, but because they are exuding that, it leads someone to believe, based off of the confidence that they have, that they can. So what I want to also suggest in this area is your resume, LinkedIn profile, all of that is important. Of course it's important, but it is not going to replace, no matter how many degrees, no matter how much your title is elevated, no matter how your earning potential is, that executive presence job seeker is something that also is going to be communicated in your interviews, across the board as you're networking and building referrals, when you are even following up those places. Those secret places, those hidden gems, are also excellent times to exercise this invisible force. So, there's so much that's happening with video resumes, video interviewing, video opportunities that I have my clients use when they are sending thank you notes. This is an opportunity to really do something to cement that. Love that. Love that.
Think about it this way. We all know people who we don't understand why they got the job. Right? We're like, what? Wait, what? How did they get the promotion? Right? How did my friend get passed over? How did I get passed over? How are they even in this position? Well, I'll tell you why they're in that position. If it's not because of some sort of corruption or favoritism, right? And that happens too, right? Let's just acknowledge that there's a small, a certain percentage, let's say, but that's not everything, right? Like you can't chalk every loss up to like corruption and scandal, right? The reason is they've been able to convince, right, either actively or just as a matter of the way they show up in the world, the people who are deciding on who gets the job, that they're the best person for the job. And then they get into the job and they don't do a good job. Because frankly, every promotion is a job you can't do yet.
Right.
right? Like, like you're getting promoted to do something you've never done before. So you may fail, right? Like that's the truth. So it's always a bet that they're taking. And why would they bet on you? The reason why they bet on you, it's not data driven, right? Because I can give you the best resume in the world, right, Lauren? And you know this. And then I show up and I'm like totally uninspiring and I can't answer questions. The resume doesn't matter. The data doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Right? I have to feel
I do want to address this. This is a good call, but is your LinkedIn profile and resume the first pass at your executive presence, like a teaser to introduce you?
Yeah, it's a proxy. Yeah, it's a proxy for your executive presence. It's people can use it to sort of filter people out in an easy way. So yeah, I mean, you don't even get the chance to physically or virtually show your executive presence if your profile and resume are garbage. People will be like, well, what kind of person is going to show up that has all these typos or, whatever resume faux pas that they have?
Exactly. Problem. And what do you think about this from the one and only amazing Claudia Paradise, who is a loyal watcher and great questioner? This is how a lot of pumped up narcissists get these jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And Claudia, great comment. And I'm going to tell you something that may get you a little bit upset, Claudia, which is the confidence is actually helps them do a better job with their job as well, whether it's deserved or not. Like actually having outsized confidence can help you get stuff done, right? So I'm not saying be a narcissist, but I'm saying confidence is not just a byproduct of doing things well. Confidence is actually an ingredient that helps you perform better. So in a way, these narcissists, and I'm no fan of narcissists either, that outsized confidence can play into an advantage versus someone. And, I love talking diversity, right? Like a lot of diverse professionals, whether you're women, second generation immigrant, we are raised to be humble, right? To not brag about ourselves. It's a quiet confidence. Well, guess what? A lot of times people don't see quiet confidence when there's someone else with loud confidence there saying, look at me, right? Like leaders don't have a lot of time. They're going to take a shortcut, right? Who do I remember feeling confident about in the meeting versus, well, I need to get to know Lauren really well. And after 5 years, I understand that there's a depth of confidence beneath the quiet veneer. It's too late. You've already missed 5 years of promotions.
Excellent. So I want to wrap up with two things. We have a couple minutes left, but one of the things that Joe talks about that I glommed onto with much enthusiasm is the Tom Brady problem. And I want to bring the Tom Brady problem to this live because who doesn't love Tom Brady, except for my husband, because he's bitter about it. But everybody wants to understand what the Tom Brady problem is, and you have it, right?
Yeah. So the Tom Brady problem is very simple, and the problem is not Tom Brady himself or any particular individual, right? The problem actually is society and the institution. So the way I like to describe it is Lauren and I walk into a conference room, or any of you folks on the call who don't look like Tom Brady, and great if you do, I mean, fantastic, right? But for most of society, we don't look like Tom Brady, right? And we all walk into a conference room, C-suite, and Tom Brady or his clone is there, right? And then other people walk into the room that don't know any of us. Who do they immediately assume is the CEO? Who do they immediately assume is on the fast track to become CEO? Right? Let's say I'm in a wheelchair, or I'm deaf, or, whatever thing it is that people don't consider the fit of a typical CEO and upper management that exists at the company, right? Because you look around and you look at upper management, and you're like, oh, they kind of all look alike, right? Very similar, right? So we become conditioned, and this isn't a judgment on people's morality. It's just, this is the way it is. If I look around and I see a bunch of Tom Brady's leading the team, and it's my turn to vote for the next person who should lead the team, guess what? More often than not, I'm going to vote for a person who seems like Tom Brady, everything else being kind of equal, right? But that's the thing. It's not equal. If our skills are equal and you look like Tom Brady, you immediately have an advantage. So now I have to do two things. One, my skills have to be greater than you, and I still might not get picked. Or, and to me, this is the real solution, I have to get past that veneer of like what people just look like, right? Like I have to put in the work. So the people who are deciding who to promote, who to make CEO, know me deeper than the fact that, you know, I'm Asian, that I have a shaved head, that I'm like 5'7", right? When they get to know me, none of that will matter. It'll be like, wow, Joe can really lead. But if they don't know me and they don't know Tom Brady, 9 times out of 10, Tom Brady's getting the call. That's just life. So we can ignore it and get mad and say, oh, that's not fair. You know, how come Tom Brady always gets all the jobs? Or we can do something about it, work on our executive presence, work on our connection to level the playing field. And I'm not a big sports analogy guy, but the Tom Brady thing just works so well.
So I put this summary in here. Don't get mad. It's easy to point the finger and go, oh, the reason why he got the promotion or that new project is because he's Tom Brady. We're using that as a metaphor. Instead, use that opportunity to develop your executive presence and get known for it. So these 6 guidelines can really start to help you unravel areas that you may be a rock star and areas where you may also see some gaps or deficiencies. So I just wanted to eliminate that objection because it's easy to go, well, how am I ever going to compete with Tom? Right? And this is one really, really helpful way of being able to redirect that energy and that effort. The last thing that I wanted to ask you before we wrap up here is, we're all going to get off this call or this live in a couple of minutes. One thing. What is the one thing anyone listening, anyone watching a replay, anybody can do to improve their executive presence right away?
Yeah. So the number one thing you can do, and it's just the first part, but if you don't do this part, you don't get to the second or third part. The first part is get better at figuring out what the goal is, what needs to happen next, like the very next thing that needs to happen. So let's say you're in a meeting, right? And the meeting's spinning its wheels. And the meeting leader, could be your boss, could be someone, you know, in management, is getting frustrated. If you can assess what would get this meeting back on track and help bring that, either yourself directly or by suggesting something to someone else and they get engaged the way they should, you will start getting invited to all those meetings. They'll be like, we got to have Lauren at that meeting, because when Lauren's not there, nothing happens. So when you can figure out what is the next thing that needs to happen to accomplish the goal, you will get invited to more meetings than you can accept. You'll have to start turning down meetings.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we solidify this. So when you get off this call, this live, something's going to happen. You're going to have another call. You're going to walk into a meeting. You're going to have a networking coffee. Something's going to happen. The one thing that you need to do is get better at figuring out what that goal is for that next occurrence. Mm-hmm. What is the key outcome that you want to be responsible for and to help generate? Yes?
Yeah. And the great thing is you don't have to do it yourself, right? Like you don't always have the position, the authority, the title, but you can influence others, right? You can say, hey, Lauren, you mentioned that thing the other day in that conversation. Maybe you want to bring that up again. And then you jump in and then you're like, man, thank goodness Joe was there to mention that, right? I haven't even done the work. What I've done is I've identified what is necessary and I've made it happen by my presence. That's executive presence.
Mm-hmm. So we're getting comments. You are well loved. We need 45 minutes for this one. Great topics. How can I watch the replay? The replay goes up about, I think it's immediately after this. Wow, this is great. I need to set up alert or something for these. So I don't miss them. Gotta run. Great session. Yay. Love the goat. We miss him in Boston. This one from Kirsten Stewart. Yay. Can't stillness project confidence as well?
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Yes.
Because you don't feel the need to run around and show off. You just move when it's time to move. And that quiet confidence is very powerful.
Right. Quiet confidence, but not too quiet that you become the humble person that doesn't actually show up and just is an observer. Is that right?
Well, the key is what is needed now, right? So sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes you got to be a little loud. So I don't want people to get married to like a given degree or state of being. It has to adapt to the situation.
Excellent. So follow up. Here's how you can learn more from Joe. The obvious one is on LinkedIn. The less obvious one is obviously, listen to his podcast. Talk to us a little bit about your podcast so people know where to tune in, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's on Apple Podcasts, major podcast platforms. It's called Executive Presence Morsels. It's the only daily podcast. People are like, why are you doing a daily podcast? That's crazy. It's because I love it. It's the only daily podcast, 5 to 10 minutes. You can listen to it online at the grocery, on your commute, if you even bother to commute anymore, or even just like a break, right? Like you go outside for a walk, 5 to 10 minutes, easily digestible, just tiny little morsels of things that are going to help you with your leadership and executive presence. And the reason why I do it is it helps me. Right? It forces me to continually think about it, improve my thinking, learn. And I do the work. I take all the things I'm reading, and my wife makes fun of me, all the self-help books and business books I read. I take all the best nuggets of that, and it gets cooked into the morsel, and I serve it to you 5 to 10 minutes a day.
Great. So a really, really great way to keep that ever presence, your executive presence ever present, is to digest some of those quick morsels. I love that. And talk to us about your Unlocking Leadership book series as well.
Yeah, so I have 3 books. For those of you who are interested in charisma, Unlock Your Charisma, right? It's a gift. I have Unlock Your Executive Presence, right? You need to explain that. We've gone over a lot of that content here, but there's more. And the final one, and I love this topic, maybe the most, I shouldn't say that, Unlock Your Connection, right? I'm the connection counselor. I love helping people connect better to others, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Do you have the connection with your clients, with your boss, with your team, with your vendors, with your spouse, partner, family? That's what life is about. Strong, good connections. And I talk about that.
And as a way of demonstrating how this connection worked, thank you, Lisa Rangel, for the introduction to Joe Lisa. I met Lisa through LinkedIn, and then she connected me to Joe. He has been a speaker at my Portfolio Rocket group, where I bring in world-class speakers as part of the curriculum. And Joe came and shared and knocked the socks off of all of the clients that were there, so much so that I had to bring him back here to live. So connections are your future. They are also your present, enriching your everyday life. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Joe. Thank you for everyone who came today. We are getting so many great comments. Yay. Thanks so much, Joe and Lauren. This was great. Andy says that he's cooked and served. I love that. And Kirsten, I'll talk to you in like an hour. So I love this, and lots of love here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Please go get his podcast. And of course, Joe, big love to you. Thank you. And I will be working on my goal for the next meeting very shortly, so I can secure some executive presence. Well, have a great day. Stay around for a few minutes, Joe, and talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much.
That was awesome. This is a great thing you do.
Thank you. Really amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. And, I'm always looking for people that are high energy, people who are somewhat irreverent. Cindy Gallup, could you die?
She was great.
Right? I was like, after that, because she was so freaking irreverent, I didn't even know what to do with myself.
She made you blush.
Oh my God, the F-bombs like coming out of her ears, right? And so naturally.
Yeah.
And so I'm always looking for great people to bring awesome nuggets. But you totally delivered, and I knew you would. I mean, there was no question in my mind. And I'm glad that you like this. I don't know.
You're still alive.
Pardon me? Oh, we're
You're
still
still
live?
live. We're talking live.
Oh my God.